Well, I have a new tool. I'm very excited. It is the Atom Stack A5 Pro, and I got it specifically to do one thing. You'll see I have a rotary attachment, and I got it so that I could laser engrave pens, as well as other things like pen cases. However, I have to get this set up to hold pens. The problem is, even with my rollers as close to each other as possible, you can see I can move them, it's still too wide to hold a pen. So what I'm going to do today is create a jig between which I can put a pen barrel and turn it on the machine to laser engrave it. So welcome to the shop. Let's make a pen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece of cherry and turn it round and try to get it perfectly the same diameter all the way through. Then I am going to mount it in a chuck and drill a 7mm hole all the way through it, or through the segment I decide to keep. And there's a reason for that. I need to hold pen barrels on there. Pen barrels come with a 7mm hole in them. You put them on a pen mandrel. That's 7mm. So if I put a pen mandrel through this and use that to hold my pens with their bushings, that will hold them centered on this jig while sitting on the rotary tool on the laser. So hopefully my logic is sound, and then all I have to worry about is making sure that the distance that the rotary tool turns matches the distance that the laser thinks is moving in order to burn graphics, because pens are smaller, narrower, thinner than cans, say. So I'm doing all of this in order to be able to etch pens. If I do this right, if it works, I will be able to put pretty much any thin, small, narrow design or names and things like that on pens. And that's the goal. Now my challenge is to turn this as straight as possible. I think I'm going to give it a diameter of 2 inches. So we'll bring out the caliper. But I need to try to make this absolutely straight as possible. So what I'm going to do is line my tool rest up with the lathe bed. As long as the tool rest is parallel with the lathe bed, it is perfectly straight, perpendicular to the axis. Well, it's parallel with the axis, perpendicular to the ends. So as long as I keep the distance between the wood and the tool rest the same, I have a perfectly straight-sided cylinder. pretty darn good. A little bigger than 2 inches, but that is very straight. And what's more important than the actual diameter is how straight it is. I can adjust motion in the machine. So as long as this sets even, it will be functional. A little bit wide there. Alright, so I have a bit of a wide section here. I'm going to very gently That's would be more than close enough. All right, so we're going to clean this surface off. I'm going to leave a little bit of the indentation from the live center. Good grief, English is hard today. It's because I've been playing with the laser all morning. I'm going to leave a little bit of that so that the drill has a place to follow in, and then I'm going to decide on how wide. They don't have to be very wide, but part of my solution is using my existing pen mandrel. Maybe. I haven't fully figured out exactly how this is going to work yet. Let's clean this end off. 7mm hole was too big. We're going to go down to a 1/4 inch because I do not have a 6mm drill. That will give me a little bit of a tighter fit on my pen mandrel and still allow me a little bit of space for epoxy. Oh yeah, that's a bit closer, a bit tighter fit. That should work a lot better. Beautiful. That worked out just about perfect. So I think I'm going to cut it off right here. I'm going to epoxy this wheel. This wheel I cannot epoxy, but I'm going to use the non-stick bushings. They fit on there tight enough that there's actually resistance, and that will give me enough pressure to hold the pen barrel onto this mandrel so that I can put it into the rotary tool and etch a pen. Cool. Well, there is a pen barrel in my jig. Gonna get set up and see how it works. So the jig is two 2-inch wheels, a 7mm pen mandrel that is cemented in, and then the nylon bushings have enough pressure to hold the pen centered. So what I'm doing now is I've got to adjust the distance rolled. Here at about 2 inches, it's a value of 84. I've got to increase that value so that I have the pen move at the appropriate distance, because this is a smaller diameter than out here. I'm close, and that's why I made a test barrel. Okay, so I had to set this up so that it was repeatable. So I've marked a piece of tape here where the roller goes. I've marked here where the bushing goes. And in order to get the pens in and out, because I have to lower my laser so that it can focus, and then raise it again to get the pen out, I have to mark everything so that I can put this back in the exact same position so it will burn each pen as close to identically as possible. The pens are very, very close to identical, but they are not identical because I'm a human. So, hang on a second, I'm going to clear settings. I had a little bump, but I'm going to fix it real quick. And like I said, what I did is I put tape down on the bed of the board here so that I could put the rotor in the exact same place if I end up having to move the rotor. I then put the I put tape to mark where everything goes, because I do have to raise the laser in order to place it. Now I'm going to reset the lasers home real quick. Close to the end of the pen, and then I want to start my graphic about there. Let me pull the graphic up. Remember, when you're using the roller, to reverse or flip your graphic, otherwise it's going to burn backwards. Alright, so I'm going to frame it real quick to make sure that it's in the... see? I forgot to recenter my... I forgot to recenter or rehome my laser. I forgot to tell my laser where its home was. That's why I like to frame it before I burn it every time. So I'm going to get this back where it was set. Move everything back where it was set. The laser where I want it. Click the button to set its home again. Now, let's try it again. All right, that looks about right. It might be a little off, but again, these are handmade, so they're not all going to be 100% identical, but they can be very, very close. All right, let's do it again. Let's burn a pen. Now, I'm sure there are better ways to do this. I know that Adam Stack, who makes my laser, does make a pen rotor, and I will most likely get one. But in order to fill this contract at this point in time, this is the best solution for me. And after some practicing and some hard work, it's working. It's working well. One thing to consider when doing this is that the wood itself, this is burl and it's got some figuring, so I want to try and position the pen so that I avoid as much of the burl as possible, so that the owner gets to see that rather than seeing the laser burnt. So the program that I'm using, Laser GRBL, Laser Gerbil, does this. It's called framing. So it'll show me where it's going to burn, so that I can turn the pen appropriately. Make sure that I'm meeting my lineup tape here, but I can turn the pen appropriately so that I can miss as much of that heavy burling as possible, and that looks like the spot where that's going to work the best. This, by the way, small attention to details like this, little things, this makes all the difference in a custom handmade pen and a mass manufactured pen. This is what makes handmade pens stand apart.